Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our B2B marketing trends in 2025 webinar. Pleasure to have everybody here. This is hosted today by Onemedia Consulting and Monsoon Consulting. And just as an introduction, Onemedia Consulting are an agency specializing in marketing automation, lead management, and data intelligence, working primarily with Adobe's campaign management solutions like Adobe Marketo Engage, and work predominantly with major brands in the DACH region, including Carl Zeiss, Sartorius, Unilever, and KSB. Also hosting the webinar this afternoon is Monsoon Consulting. Monsoon Consulting provide a full-service B2B and B2C e-commerce solution for enterprise clients using primarily Adobe Commerce. Working with very large clients, including Cisco Ireland, CMS Distribution, Unifar, Select Tech, and Pub Punch in the UK, winner of 2 UK e-commerce awards. Very pleased to welcome our speakers today for the webinar. We have Wolfgang Strassburger, the CEO of Onemedia Consulting and current Marketo Engage champion. Wolfgang has over 20 years experience in digital marketing and is renowned for expertise in automation, data-driven strategies, and helping brands scale with Marketo. He's an industry-recognized thought leader and has helped numerous global brands elevate their marketing performance. Also joining me today is Bharat Sharma. Bharat's the CEO of Monsoon, and is a seasoned B2B marketing strategist with expertise in digital transformation, customer experience, and e-commerce solutions. Under Bharat's leadership, Monsoon has driven huge success for e-commerce brands across multiple industries and has helped them to innovate and grow. And just for myself, I'm your host. I'm Alistair Brodie. I'm the commercial director of Monsoon, and it's a pleasure to have everybody here. So Wolfgang and Bharat, very warm welcome. It's a pleasure to have you both here. How you all doing this afternoon?
Thank you very much for the intro, Alistair. It's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to the conversation and can't wait.
Great stuff.
Likewise, Alistair, thank you very much for introduction, and it's been a pleasure to be here. And I'm really excited and looking forward to talk to share some ideas and learn from the participant groups. Thank you.
Great stuff. Well, it's I can't believe it's now the middle of February already in 2025, and I'm sure and hope everyone's having a very busy start to the year. We're going to touch on a lot of areas and subject matters, I'm sure, in this afternoon's Fireside chat, and we'll keep it very conversational. We've also got a couple of interactive polls for the audience to interact with and provide some feedback. We'll serve and display those poll questions just intermittently throughout the conversation. Please do jump in, and I should also say, if there are any questions or any comments, please use the chat functionality within the webinar, and we'll be sure to call them out towards the end of the session. And we are actually recording the session, and we'll be delighted to kind of share this with everyone after today's webinar. So, okay, well, let's just, I guess, get straight into it. So, guys, we're already, as I say, middle of February 2025. We've got Adobe Summit in Las Vegas coming up next month, which is a big one for the community and the wider ecosystem, of course. But I guess we could maybe start off the conversation just by reviewing the B2B landscape and how it's essentially evolved over the last year, and perhaps more importantly, what major shifts are you seeing in your respective companies that are potentially shaping 2025? Maybe Wolfgang, I'll start with yourself.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I mean, you already mentioned it. We're going to be looking at that through our particular lenses a little bit. So my point of view obviously comes from the B2B marketing automation, journey optimization perspective. And when we're looking at that as a quick primer, we usually work obviously with data. Data are fueling then experiences and journeys, which ideally are as personalized as possible. And throughout the years, we've been, as marketers, always aiming at being good at describing our business reality through the data that we are having at our hands, utilizing it to fuel journeys. And very often in the past, like what we've seen is that basically we can, even if we turn up the level of complexity to 11, like we as the ones operating that engine or that machine are the ones that are limiting it by either the amount of time we have available or maybe the accuracy of data and whatnot. So this is kind of like the big driver in our industry. And there are two trends that it's not coming out of nowhere, but it's basically two trends that we are seeing that have a very, very large impact on that. So one trend being the rethinking of marketing technology architectures. Like, for the ones who haven't heard about that, CDPs are a thing, centralized data stores are a thing. It basically comes down to you put all of your data into a central space, whatever that's called, and then you're tapping into that centralized pool of data with your systems, maybe your Marketo or whatever you want to connect to that. In the past, like, we had so-called point-to-point solutions, would ultimately kind of, you push a subset of data into a system which then it can use. So that's one thing. So what it does for B2B companies, it provides a way more versatile and complete backdrop of information that we can utilize to describe said reality that I mentioned earlier. And then obviously the second step, a second bit that really has a huge impact, is obviously artificial intelligence. So why is AI having such a big impact? Because it allows us to describe complexities easier with the same amount of resources, aka colleagues, than what we've been able to do in the past. So basically, even if data is unstructured, AI can go over that, structure it for us. We can create models that help with seeing who is the most relevant person to talk to right now. Like, there's a lot of those things. When I'm talking about AI, I specifically not only want to limit that to large language models. So I'm not talking about ChatGPT here. What I'm talking about is our capability to interact with large quantities of data, extracting intelligence that ultimately fuel experiences. So that put together, more accessibility of information through better data stores, plus a better way of interpreting that data and turning it into something that actually makes a difference for customers. That two trends are really gigantic in the B2B world, and we don't even realize yet, I have the feeling, where that can take us in the variety of different applications.
Yeah, no, thanks, Wolfgang. And, I can certainly relate to what you're saying there. And those kind of concepts, certainly, I think we'll be talking a lot about AI and how it's maturing and how we're actually going to be utilizing it in our respective companies, and accessibility of information and how we interpret it. I hear what you're saying there, and I'm sure we can, echo that from our side. Bharat, just jumping off there from what Wolfgang said, how about everything from a Monsoon perspective? What are you seeing in terms of trends and this year ahead?
Sure. Yeah. Look, just to echo what Wolfgang is saying, there is a definite push about using and reviewing that MarTech technology. Not only how do we engage with our existing client, but how do we acquire a new client, where they are, what channel they use, what language they're using, and can we go and engage them, hook them in some kind of a trust as your brand, and then upsell them and convert that to a sales, and then retain them for a long-term customer. The interesting fact for me is, up to like a couple of years post-COVID, a lot of our conversation coming from e-commerce side. Most of the communication conversation with a new client or existing successful managers from the client side would have been all about e-commerce sites. How can we make more sales? And, the site is fast enough, and is it connected with ERPs? And so there was a lot of e-commerce platform specific communications and demand. But since last year, and a lot more so in the kind of recent months, most of our recent engagement, what we are listening from client is they're thinking end-to-end solutions. They're thinking this customer engagement where they're saying, okay, we need to reach out to the customer and win them and acquire the customer acquisition strategy. Therefore, we need a Marketo-like tool or some kind of a marketing automation tool where we can talk to their language, understand their profile, nurture their relationships, and then convert that to the deal. So before we even talk e-commerce, now clients are talking about end-to-end solutions. They're looking at Marketo, then they look at e-commerce solution like Adobe Commerce or any kind of a equivalent platform where we come in the picture. And then they are also looking at the technology trends and saying, I am really worried of AI. How can I use AI to do more predictive analysis and promote my products, which is more relevant to client? So the use of AI for not only predictive analysis point of view and recommendation engines and new product engine, this is where there's a lot of inclination, a lot of demand coming from clients. But even generative AI tools, like how can I make my marketing content cheaper, faster, more efficient, and manage it without having to have a large team? So those tools are all coming into the fore. And tools like, Adobe Sensei, Adobe Firefly, Marketo AI engine, all of these things are making a huge difference and bringing big wins for us as a trend. The other very interesting area which I found a huge engagement and a huge appetite from clients to invest is around the self-service area. So it's just not about having a great e-commerce tool, but it's the e-commerce tool for the client's needs that has to be customized based on who they are, what they are trying to consume or buying, and what have their purchase history. And based on that, everyone needs very, very specific and customized personal portals. And this is where they are reordering or ordering. So the old fashion of providing a standard bespoke e-commerce solutions are gone.
Yep.
Nowadays, it's all about being very precise and very customer focused, and it needs to be personalized for the customer needs. That's the kind of two big things for me. Along with that, obviously, from the overall relationship point of view, I'm sensing the local partners. If you look at the marketing point of view, big brand used to be traditionally dominating their brand, their identity. But lately, big brands are starting bringing their local nearshore partners, small little suppliers. But it's a cool thing now to bring these small brands, and they are going for a journey. And this is how they are projecting and sending the message out. I think this is becoming a very kind of a nearshore style, bringing partner along in the key messaging kind of a trend for me. So yeah, very interesting space and really excited about it. Thank you.
Thanks very much. A lot covered there, and quite a kind of brilliant place to kind of start off with. Lots of things we'll touch on just shortly in the next few questions. Just before I jump into the next area I wanted to kind of cover, I'm going to serve up a quick poll question just for the audience now, just to get the participants' kind of feedback on perhaps where you're seeing 2025 going from your budget investment perspective. So we have a quick poll up there. It would be great just to get your kind of feedback there if you can see that, and we'll carry on and we'll call out the question and maybe see where the trends are going in terms of investment budgets for the year ahead. Please do jump in and input your answer there. I'm already seeing quite a lot of weight there going towards content marketing, email marketing, and nurturing, as we just mentioned there in that last subject matter. Events and trade show, very interesting to see that. I think we're certainly, from a Monsoon perspective, we've been working very heavily across trade shows and all our vertical sectors there. So that's very interesting to see that shooting up there in 2025. Great to see that. I think there's still very much a yearning and a desire for human connections, as well as what we're doing right now in the online world there. So some great feedback there, guys. Any comments yourself just before we jump in? Certainly some interesting feedback. Content very relevant, I'd have thought. Wolfgang, from your side?
No, absolutely. I mean, what we're seeing there is kind of what I have expected to a certain degree, if I'm perfectly honest. Like, that is what I think drives a lot of those journeys, and also those connections to customers and prospects ultimately are those touch points. Like trade shows, for example, still one of the most expensive, but obviously most high touch points you can have with prospects and customers. It's very much front and center for many of our customers as well. Like bundling that into larger experiences, not just being at a trade show itself. Like, totally, I like what I'm seeing.
Yeah, no, very, very much so. Okay, I'm going to just move on to our next kind of area, and just following on from what we discussed there, and specifically within the B2B environment, I think B2B businesses are certainly maturing, embracing all technologies, and really getting on the train, the digital transformation train for sure. But certainly, perhaps struggling to personalize their experiences whilst maintaining efficiency. So I guess, within your respective kind of, companies and industries, how can businesses use the platforms we're talking about today, namely Marketo and Adobe Commerce and any other tools, to achieve the balance between personalizing experiences and maintaining efficiency? So any thoughts there, Bharat? Maybe I'll start with yourself.
Yeah, sure. Personally, again, personalization is the key driving factor for growth, and most of the investment in 2025 and probably last couple of years. And tool sets like Adobe Commerce and Adobe Marketing and Marketo Engage and CDPs, they are perfectly built and interoperable to provide that seamless customer experience right from the day one they get an email telling who they are and what we can do for you, to all the way to convert that to nurture the relationships, and then providing that seamless experience when it's a buying experience and loyalty. Adobe Commerce, especially, that's the kind of area I would know a little better. And I'm sure Marketo will be covered by Wolfgang a bit more about personalization. But the way we have built solution and the way it's been demanded by clients, to be very honest, it's always customer needs driven. I think what we have been doing lately is we are creating very, very personalized customer dashboards based on their needs. So, for example, if you're a chef and if you're buying your regular menu items at like 2 a.m. after everyone has dined out of the restaurant, if I provide a dashboard which gives 10,000 different SKUs and products and God knows what, no one is going to use it. Whereas if I provide a tablet which say, buy your usual, which you bought yesterday, that kind of a personalized dashboard experience. So user persona and user's requirement driven dashboard is one of the things Adobe Commerce does really, really well. And we put a lot of time and focus on not only what needs to be served, but what device they're going to use and how effectively it'll be for them to make their life easier, faster, and very, very convenient. The AI, again, Adobe Sensor is an amazing tool that doesn't require, efficiency point of view, a lot of staff and team members to configure your recommendations, your products. However, what it does is based on its own learning and customer behavior, it will give the product recommendations. It'll adjust what needs to be shown, what's your usual products you buy, what's your most frequent product, what's your most highly demand product. So all of these things can be really, really served and managed by Adobe Sensei, and it takes a lot of cost and time overheads away from the things. Along with that, Adobe Commerce B2B comes with special price tiers. So for each customer, or even in the customer groups, if you have a specific price negotiated, system will show only those price and only those offers. If you are a vegan restaurant, it's no point, some food supplier showing you the beet or, the big food pallets. So that customized limited catalog items, all of that can be configured. And these personalized experience is the one that makes the difference. Along with that self-service area, the young generation, the probably people of my younger age, they don't like to call in anymore. They're just downloading their invoices, checking their order history. All of that needs to be automated and available through a personalized experience. And it should be available like 2 a.m. in the morning to another 2 a.m. in the morning, 24/7. And that's the experience Adobe Commerce provides, along with connection with the Adobe Marketo tools that are marketing. And I'll get Wolfgang to cover that part from his side on personalization.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, we are seeing a lot of that, and a lot of the B2B enterprises and customers we're working with are really now leading the charge, and in some respects, even doing more innovation than, the D2C and B2C models now. B2B really is is a hive of innovation for hyper personalization. We see across all our kind of sectors. Wolfgang, from your side of things, you know, do you echo that, and what other kind of insights do you take from a personalization perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the B2B world is a hive of innovation. I totally agree with that. Like it has to be. Like that's the point of it. Like if we thinking about personalization in the B2B space, that means it's not just about people. It's also about accounts. It might be about buying centers. Like there are different levels of personalization before we even get started on personalizing anything. So we are selling to companies. Companies are represented by certain individuals as a buying group, which are in turn obviously human beings. So therefore, what do you personalize to? And there's different ways of doing that, and that's super interesting. Again, there's a lot of development in that space. If we're thinking about Marketo Engage in combination with Journey Optimizer B2B sitting on top of Adobe RTCDP, like there's a lot of possibilities in that field, how we can tackle person-based marketing, person-based automation versus buying group-based automation versus account-based marketing. Like there's a ton of possibilities there. And it really comes down to the respective go-to-market strategy of a said company to say where the hammer should fall, like where should be more focus on one of those different approaches. Ultimately, this is the capabilities. Like when we're talking about the customer journey offerings from Adobe, then we're talking the three solutions I just mentioned. Ultimately, they are, when it's about AJO B2B or when it's about Marketo Engage, they are fantastic workflow engines. So basically, they are built for that. They are built for that complexity. They are best in the market when it comes to that. So as long as you know what you want to do, you can perfectly serve that up in those systems. So what I think is more of the limiting factor when it comes to personalization, personalized experience, it's a strategy. So basically, do you actually know what matters to you? So the question is that something that you can find out in a data-driven approach? So basically, are you talking to the right people? What kind of account coverage do you have? What kind of portfolio coverage do you have in those accounts? Like a lot of those usual sales questions that we're seeing should be questions that are now also asked by marketing, because they should be a very important factor of why we should be talking to certain persons. And then obviously, if we accept that those two solutions are fantastic workflow engines, again, personal opinion, I'm invested in that, I think they're the best on the market, but they are only as good as how we can operate them. And that again comes what I said initially, like the better access we have to a vast amount of information, aka data, the better we can synthesize that information into insights, maybe AI-based, maybe just pure logic-based, doesn't really matter, the better our personalization will be. So the limit there is not the solutions we have access to. The limit is more us. What do we want? How can we get to a sound strategy and be able to operationalize that in a good way? And then last but not least, I'm not sure how you guys see that, but what we are seeing a lot when it comes to really scaling a marketing ops, you put a lot of strain on your content production engine. Like basically personalization comes with a gigantic hunger for personalized content that someone has to produce. Someone or something, shall I say, because we obviously have Sensei, we have Gen AI capabilities. So there is a lot of possibility how to scale also our content pipelines, but one doesn't work without the other. So even if we are in a technical position to do super personalized and very granular journeys, if we can't create the content for that hyper personalization, it falls on its nose, even if the technical capability would be there. So basically, I think that's one of the hardships with that, because it's not just one sector in your operation that you have to scale, it's actually multiple. And the question you have there is, how can you do that? Do you need to do a huge invest into everything? Should you start with a lighthouse project in one area to keep it manageable? I think that are the worries or the questions that are in a lot of the hats, and I totally see why.
Yeah, no, I totally hear and relate to what you're saying there, and I think the key takeaway I'm getting from your kind of response there is we've got the tools, we've got all the relevant tech solutions. The tech is way ahead. We're in numerous different cycles and maturity of the tech. From an organizational perspective and B2B specifically for this conversation, it's really about the only limit is our imagination and the buy-in from all the key stakeholders. And from our side, certainly we're seeing now from a data perspective, marketing automation perspective across B2B, it's really affecting all aspects of the organization. And where the marketing team or the e-commerce team used to sit in perhaps a silo, they're now effectively democratizing the whole organization, really. And data is helping all aspects of a given organization. Which really just kind of leads me on just to the next kind of area I just wanted to kind of touch on, and that was, retention. We talk a lot about acquisition and marketing automation and lead generation for acquisition and new customers and new revenue streams. But I maybe just want to turn the discussion to retention within B2B, and perhaps in each of your respective areas and industries, what would you say could be effective strategies to improve and maximize customer loyalty, customer retention, and even lifetime value? Bharat, I'll come back to you.
Sure, thanks, Alistair. So yeah, retention, and even before retention, I'll try to cover that point about the content and having that right content available, as Wolfgang was emphasizing. So here was a case we were discussing with one of our clients recently, and we were talking about this specific challenge they have. So they have brilliant marketing team and marketing automation systems in place, and they're acquiring the clients to the level they sign off to the e-commerce system. But then it stops where they have invested into the marketing automation, they have got the customer acquisition done. But a lot of customers, after they get on board and sign, they actually don't use the system. So they are already on e-commerce, they've already used Marketos, but they're not buying. They're still using the traditional phones and emails ordering. How do we manage that? And one of the solution, it's not the most high-tech requirement, I'm guessing, but one of the solution we came around was, and the brainstorming was, how about we create curated content just to entice these buyers using Marketo as a tool, and obviously a personalized dashboard as a tool on Magento, and maybe a manual intervention, all about tips of how to use the system, the value it creates, the time it saves. So we end up creating these automated content workflow that was just literally, okay, welcome to the system. Now you're on board, and here are the 2 things you can do that could be make your life easier. So this content wasn't the most high tech and cost consuming, but it was so effective for them to just convert the deal to actually start becoming them an e-commerce user instead of just someone who just signed on and forgot about the user ID password afterwards. And that brings to the retention. So for me, retention is, as long as we are providing a real value to our buyers, to our customers, making their life easier, faster, saving them hassles, maybe giving them saving the cost, but more importantly, making it really fast and efficient and time consuming, that brings loyalty, that brings convenience, that brings kind of a long-term retention for it. Yeah. And whatever we do as an e-commerce solution provider, our focus is always about what can we do to make their flight easier. They can do the order in like 30 seconds instead of 5 clicks, the checkout box, put the address. All of that needs to go away. The clutter needs to go away. So the first thing we do about retention and keeping the high retention rate, we try to deliver a completely frictionless, value-driven experience. So they engage, they land on the system. The very first thing they need to know is, what can I buy in 1 click? How fast it could be done without any hassle? Can I find the products I buy? Can I know how much I buy every quarter? Can I know what's my regular products? Can I know if the weather is changing, what are the most product I could perhaps buy? So all of these things and that persuasive knowledge, I think that makes life easier, faster. You do that, and you also do that with the personalized pricing and contract. So it's no point telling them an offer that's not relevant to them. So the content needs to be really, really personalized. And on top of that, then you bring other elements of loyalty programs. Obviously, account-based marketing is an amazing thing that Marketo engage really, really entice clients. Loyalty and reward programs is something that is, I talked a lot. In Monsoon, we run a lot of webinars like these to retain our clients. We found bringing the community and peer engagement and let them share how-tos. How did I best use Marketos and how do I use Adobe Commerce? Those kind of value brings a huge amount of loyalty and retentionship for us as a company for B2B. The other interesting kind of analysis and prediction-based AI tools that could help for retention. So people are talking about, and it's happening when you are creating the dashboard, when you're predicting what inventory or what product a client will end up buying, you're also analyzing what they have bought. So if there is a flag or a risk analysis algorithm we can define and say, this client is not so active in last 3 months or 6 months, and if it raises a risk on the dashboard, that can be escalated to your Marketo automation for triggers, enticing them special offers, or if it's a high value customer, maybe intervention from your account management team. Those kind of flags to retain a customer, it could be an absolute gold mine, because the cost of acquisition is always so much higher than a cost of retention. So these things is very, very highly recommended, and they're not really that expensive. It's just a matter of thinking and putting those things together.
Yeah, no, some great stuff there. And yeah, I think we're seeing the technology and within Adobe Commerce and Marketo really helping with triggering lapsed customers. And I know we've done a lot of discovery and work with organizations and bringing in their contact and BDM teams to really kind of drive lapsed customers and bring them back into that retention window. And I like the phrase persuasive knowledge. I think that could be a new terminology for me, and how to describe AI. I like that. That's great. And yeah, certainly the mindset of a B2B buyer is different to a consumer. The B2B buyer is time poor. They want to use the technology to enrich and ultimately help their jobs and get the best price and all that stuff we've talked about there. So no, totally agree. Wolfgang, how does retention look for your clients and your strategy going forward there?
Actually, like Bharat touched on the most important things. Like the big thing that's on my small little notebook here is value. So basically, as long as you understand what kind of value you can provide when, I think you'll always be good at playing the retention game. So that's easier said than done, I realize. So what does that require? It requires a extremely well mapped out understanding of every individual's position within a life cycle. So you have to know in which phase they are, what they are usually concerned with, etc., etc. The better you can plot them on this large map, the easier it is for you to actually trigger based on that and provide something that accompanies the phase in that customer's life cycle well. So what you need to do is you have to understand that well. And I want to leave you with the question, do you know what the neurologic events in your buyer's journey actually are? What are the Apple iPhone, I unpack my new iPhone moments with your service or product? So whenever is such an event, a compelling event, or however you want to call it, that really makes your customer's experience. If you know that, piggyback on that. If you don't know that, find out quickly, because that's the starting point for building a strategy, an automation, and a journey based on those events. And they can be in the positive and in the negative. So think about a classic software as a service platform. So whenever someone is inactive for 30 days not using your product, well, what are you doing? You can either wait for them to cancel the subscription, or you can see where the issue is. Haven't they been enabled well? Are they not getting the value out of your product or service? What's the issue? And this is not just a software as a service approach. It's more and more going into traditional products, because more products are sending back information about how they are used, how often they are used, they are connected. Think about all of those data points that you either already have or potentially can get access to, that really let you understand how your products are actually used at your customers, and take that as a starting point for building around those compelling events that you have in your customer journey. And I think that is, if we get to that, then we are in a complete different universe when it comes to personalization and value we can provide.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating, and totally agree, and that resonates a lot with the work we're doing in the e-commerce side of things, for sure. Just moving on, just conscious of time now, just another couple of quick areas just to touch on and get thoughts. So we've started to kind of move into my next area, which was perhaps the marriage of our e-commerce platform, our e-commerce solution, and indeed our marketing automation, our MarTech solution. So what would you guys say are the biggest challenges that B2B companies face when integrating their e-commerce stack with their marketing technology platforms? What challenges would they typically see, and more importantly, how could they overcome them? Maybe I'll come back to yourself there, Wolfgang, just on the tail end of your last point there.
Yeah, actually, I think there's multiple layers to that. So what we usually see is that from our customers' perspective, they usually are world market leader in whatever respective field they are, which means they have a very strong customer base that are fueling a lot of the revenue, large percentage of the revenue. That revenue they have created, for some of them, without a lot of e-commerce transactions. So basically, they built that on large sales teams that are close to the customers, and so on and so forth. So they're coming out of an history, let's say, that's very much sales led. And now they are left with exactly the trend that we're seeing, that obviously they want to run with digitalization, make sure that all of those touch points are also digital, because not every buyer is interested anymore in a sales rep seeing them once a year at a trade show and that being good enough for the customer experience. So they want that to handle differently. They want to have more say. They want to be more up in basically doing it on their terms rather than on the company's terms. So we are in a buyer market in very much most of the industries we are in. So therefore, companies have to react, and they have to find a new balance between e-commerce and their classic sales approaches. So that's the first strategy question. So that is one of the challenges. You have to know what you want, because obviously that has implications on the amount of sales reps you need, what they should concern themselves with. So you need to triage between what goes into e-commerce, what goes into the traditional sales process. Where do you blend it together? Where do you separate it? So all of that are actual questions that have to be mapped out first before we even touch anything on the technology layer. So basically that's happening before the first line of code is written in any system. Yeah. So let's say we have a good agreement. So we know what we want to do, we know what we want to get into. Then the next topic is process, I feel. So basically, how are the processes split up? So how do we actually find out that one customer prefers an e-commerce driven checkout more? Which customer kind of wants to still say hi to Bob, the sales rep that he talked to the last 10 years? Are we actually actively forcing customers from one journey to the other? Are we doing that smart? So whenever someone buys online or via e-commerce, we kind of automatically push them down the e-commerce route, no matter what the transaction value is. There's a process question, and process basically means it needs to be black and white. Otherwise we can't run that process, because what is the fact, every process needs to be built up in a system. So let's think about a classic lead lifecycle that's built up in Marketo. We have a scoring that's running. So someone indicates, or the scoring indicates, hey, Bharat is now in the market of buying Marketo Engage from Onemedia because they are awesome. So at that point, we have to decide, is Bharat an e-commerce buyer, or is Bharat a buyer that needs a call from our colleague Lisa because that's the way he likes to check out? So how do we there has to be a triaging built into the system, who is going left and who is going right. So common ways of doing that is obviously transaction size. So if that is a customer that is less than X amount of revenue per year, it's always going to go e-commerce because the numbers just don't work out with traditional sales reps very well on those customers. Or it could be that there is a preference. Like, all of that is possible, but that has to be there. And then the last bit where we sometimes see organizations struggle a little bit is the pure tech bit. So that's basically the integration. So now that you've figured all of that out, you have a clear strategy, you have a clear process on who is doing what and who is running what and owning what. Now it's going to build, you have to build those workflows, those integrations. And that sometimes isn't as smooth as one would hope. And I can only recommend that you are reaching out to Monsoon in that case, or to us, to get someone in that has done that a couple of times, because it is not that straightforward sometimes. Like, to just build that in a good and scalable way, because there is multiple. Like, think about an event-driven architecture, right? Think about how many different events you can have from a proper e-commerce solution like Adobe Commerce. It's not just about checkout, it's about anything else. So, and it's not just Marketo that needs that information. It's probably going to be a CRM. It's maybe a customer portal. Like, there is so many things where that information needs to be distributed, and we're not even talking BI and dashboards. So just to get that mapped out well, built well, that you're not kind of using up a trillion amount of API calls that are unnecessary, bogging down your system, keeping that efficient and scalable. I think there are some challenges around that. None that you can't master perfectly well. Like, we've done that with a lot of customers in the past very, very successfully. It's just something that I know is then becoming a little bit of a headache, and a bit of guidance there was always welcome in the past.
Thanks, Wolfgang. Just picking up an integration there, Brad, that's maybe an area I'm sure, very close to Monsoon there in terms of challenges. Your side of things?
Yeah, that's what we do day to day. So once Wolfgang and the team decides how it's going to work at a strategy point of view, then we come in the picture and say, okay, let's do it as Wolfgang is telling us. And there's multiple challenges around this kind of and this particular task. It's exciting, it's very interesting, but it could be frustrating because it needs a lot of thinking. It needs investment as well, because you're building a stack for long term, at least mid-term point of view. What I've learned is, doesn't matter which company, which client you work for, more successful they are, the challenges around, the longer the company, the bigger the data silos are. So they would bound to have system where their customer information is sitting in one piece of a database. It could be a CRM system, or it could be an old custom ordering system. Their product information can be sitting. I've seen everything right from a very, very sophisticated PIM system to Excel sheets with tons of records. So the first thing is, when we are trying to provide this solution, an end-to-end digital experience, a frictionless experience, we need to make sure that we decide where data is going to reside, which CRM system is going to hold the customer system, ERP system holds the order system, the payment gateway information, or client information and product information. So we decide the silos of data, break it, and make sure who hosts, what is the home for the specific data.
Yep.
And then we try to make sure that that is the only home. You don't replicate and redundant. So all of these systems, your CRM system, your ERP system, your marketing automation system, your e-commerce system, they need to start talking to each other using sophisticated APIs. But at the same time, when they're talking to each other, we need to make sure that we are not overdoing these calls. As Wolfgang rightly said, too many API calls. And sometimes some of the clients I've seen, they can get really obsessed about quantity of the product available in inventory. It needs to be in the real time.
Yeah.
Do you really need that in the real time, or can you compromise a little bit? Because if you're doing in the real time, and if you're making a call to an old legacy SAP system, it will be very slow and it'll take its few seconds or milliseconds, whereas you might consider having a middle tier where it could be flying fast, but it's updated maybe hourly basis on a periodical basis. So the compromise of best performance to best consistent information, all of those considerations should be thought about and planned before we start doing the integration. The legacy system is another very, very big challenge. More successful, the older the companies, the businesses are, there is a very good chances they're using older version of ERP systems, or they have their own custom built system, which their great IT managers built in the time when there was no great ERP system available. And now you're trying to bolt into it without having any real APIs or REST API or architecture available, and that creates overhead. My 2 cents on that would be is, if you are investing in new technology, please pick the most standard technology with the least possible customization possible, and use them interoperable. If you're having Adobe Commerce, Marketo Engage seems like a perfect fit because they just talk same vendor, same company. So always think about your stack as if, can they talk, or do you need to custom build each time? The other thing I would do is, if there are legacy system, and if you are having this, I've really seen these arguments at the board level. We are presenting to a client to say, you need to update your SAP HANA or whatever the system they're using. And they're saying, well, it's going to cost me X amount of money. That's fair. You could use and continue using your current legacy system. But the fact that it's slow and it's frustrating your existing client, the losing opportunity in terms of new orders and potentially risk of losing your existing client because they're frustrated, is a lot bigger cost of opportunity than just spending another X number of K and upgrade to the system and provide that frictionless, fast, intuitive experience. So you want to lose clients and orders, or you want to spend a bit more money and then have that consistent experience? These are the decisions I would really force clients to think and question them. So yeah, it's all about speed. It's all about data silos. It's all about interoperability, and then making sure that your building blocks, it doesn't have to be all on day one, but your building block for next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years time, and continues building that stack for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Just in the last 5 or so minutes that we have just in the webinar, I can't believe we've got through so much in such little time here. But just to the audience, if we do have any questions that you would like, please do drop them into the chat, and we'll spend a minute or two just at the end, just in wrap up, to try and get some Q&A to Wolfgang or Bharat. So please do use that chat. I think we've just got one more question, then we'll just wrap up with one last kind of poll here. We've talked a lot this afternoon just about self-service. It's a very, very important, popular, and reoccurring trend within the B2B landscape. We see it in most organizations now. Just very quickly, how can businesses optimize their sites, their marketing strategy to address this move, this customer need and expectation that the self-service experience should be there for them? How can businesses capitalize and optimize on that? Just very quickly, if I could, I'll come back to yourself, Wolfgang, there.
Yeah, sure. So I'm thinking of it from the journey perspective again, right? So self-service basically means that we can utilize a customer-initiated touch point. So basically, self-service means the customer wants to do something him or herself. All of those activities are basically gold for us, because they mean the customer wants something. I can now see that as an entry point to follow up with whatever I think is appropriate. The better I'm good at what I think is appropriate, the more value I can create around that customer. and obviously like I can create like a larger web around that. So what that means is customer engagement is indicating interest. Interest is the precursor to action. Now, take those 3 steps after the other. We can use, again, for example, machine learning or AI algorithms to really create a web out of single transactions. So basically, we can measure the depth and the importance of a single transaction in connection to a sales or an opportunity, or one opportunity later on. Obviously, yes, that's a retrospect analysis in the beginning, but out of this retrospect analysis, you can build predictions for the future. So basically, you can then also predict, and we are doing that for certain customers, what the potential next best action should be. That could be a topic, that could be a channel, that could be a lot of those elements. And by that, we can capitalize on this self-service approach by not doing more, but doing more of the things that actually matter. Like what we need is to scale down on broad marketing and ramp up on specific needle approach to kind of set the right aspect at the right point. And again, what can help us with that, or what should help us with that, is actually data analysis. If you have a fantastic data scientist, do it yourself. If you don't, talk to us. We have ready models for that. But I think that is actually making a huge difference. That actually, and now probably it's a good segue over to you then, Bharat, is also something that works in the e-commerce world. Like, think about all of the transactions you're having there. We're doing that, for example, for some of our customers. We are looking at past transactions to predict future sales. So we can, for example, see if our best customers are buying in multiple categories, and their likelihood for or basically their likelihood for providing an X amount of revenue is higher if we can get them to buy in a second category from us in large volumes and whatnot. Like, there's a lot of insight hidden in large volume e-commerce data, and all of that can be used to personalize the experience of the person in the e-commerce checkout process, but also in everything beyond. Like, there we're coming full circle to what you initially said, that we should look at it as a more holistic topic rather than a singular marketing automation or e-commerce process. I full-heartedly agree with that, and I think that is the key. So what's the job of the businesses? That's the question you ask, Alistair. The job is to kind of act on those signals, see them as a starting point, not as a means of an end of a conversation.
Yeah, oh, great stuff, Wolfgang. Bharat, some last thoughts from yourself on self-service in the B2B space?
That's what we do. And Wolfgang summarized it really well. It's not about giving them to do more. It's about let them do what they do the most, and just that specific task. So again, when we are providing a solution, we try to say what makes that life easier, what is that they do day to day that they can do digitally, and let's just remove all the clutter. Unfortunately, most of the great tools like e-commerce and Adobe Commerce and Marketo, they comes with tons and tons of great features and functionality. But each customer have their unique needs. If we could just somehow declutter rest of the things, put them somewhere away, and make a dashboard, make a self-service area, something so easy and convenient where they can just say, you know what, that's what I ordered yesterday. These are my usuals. I'll buy it now. We even go one step further now, and we even predict how many products they have bought in last 1 month, last quarter. And we actually suggest them the quantity. Do you want to reorder 20 again because you bought in last 3 months? So we go one step further. How can we make their intellectual brain power to save? They just make a decision just by clicking. So I think self-service is about a bit of a thinking. As Wolfgang said, we also provide usability testing, customer persona analysis, not so much about coding, but just thinking, who are those people? Are they going to use tablets? Are they going to use mobile? Are they going to use screen? Do they even have a very, very big bandwidth and we are just pumping huge amount of videos which they can't show because internet is slow? If they are buying hardwares or piece of woods, in a remote country of Ireland. So we need to think about user personas, decide the clutter, remove the clutter, make it simple for them. And I think if you make that so easy, along with that, if you can actually, I'll give you an example. One of the byproduct of self-service, we have a client, and we never thought it will become such a big hit, but within 6 months of going live, they connected. One of the feature on the self-service area was to connect with their ERP system, and people can search their account receivables and last 12 months invoices or 3 months invoices and download it. Just that feature, which we never thought is going to be used, they managed to redeploy 13 people from their accounts receivable or customer support team who are just taking phone calls and having this endless hassle and call. They use those 13 people now in the field sales and acquiring more clients. So there are things that could save lives: data sheets, spec sheets, product how-to machines. All of these things should be available in self-service area, and it'll make a huge difference. And it's not technical. It's just about thinking and analyzing customers' need and just customize it based on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, totally agree, and it's a great way to kind of conclude this this webinar. And I think we could have a separate webinar on self-service as a subject matter. Thanks very much, gentlemen. That's been great. I think just in the last minute or so, we had one last poll question that we served to the audience. I'm not sure if we can just call up the results there. I think I did see some interesting answers and trends, which probably kind of align with a lot of things we're hearing in our industries and clients. The question about anticipation of the biggest challenges impacting B2B marketing and e-commerce strategy, a big heavy weight there towards the global kind of economic uncertainty and market downturn, and then I think just coming in second there, global political instability and how that maybe affects supply chain. So yeah, I think that resonates very, very clearly, and it's an interesting way to kind of wrap up the webinar. Any final thoughts there, guys, just before I close off the webinar?
Yeah, I can go first, I guess. It's like we are predominantly operating in Europe, right? Europe is, especially in the past days, very highly affected by uncertainties. We are sitting between the stools a little bit, if we're perfectly honest, with a lot of things that is playing out that is not under our direct control, it feels at times. Yeah. So we have to react. And what my thoughts are, personal opinion on this is, to be able to react, you have to be very, very close to the steering wheel. So that means you have to be able to act based on information that you have. What is information that is important in our field? We can't control what the markets are doing. It's beyond our reach. What we can control is what do we do as B2B marketers to counter certain effects, certain trends. So obviously there's pressure on our budgets. So what do we do with that? The best way for us to handle that is to find out where our budget is well spent. So every euro that you're spending on finding out where you actually have impact is a euro well spent, because that helps you guide where you can, for example, shave off a little bit of fat and where you shouldn't, because it's really hurting your organization. Then B, there is a lot of uncertainty when it comes to maybe technical architectures. Where are you allowed to store your data? Does it make sense to use system A over system B? Like, I think we've always been good in Europe to do our due diligence on that. Like, we've done so in the past. I think we are on a very strong foundation to that. And we value data privacy very, very highly. I think that is something we can build upon also in the future. And from a B2B marketing perspective, again, I think from a technology stack perspective, we are good. What we need to find out is how can we utilize and maximize output from things we already have. That's light on the wallet. And I can guarantee you, I've never seen a project or a customer that we worked with that there was no possibility for improving things without adding something on top that did cost a fortune.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Bharat, final thoughts as we wrap up here?
No, I think Wolfgang has covered most of the kind of a part here as well. And what I would have said, the area where I'm a bit sensitive and worried about is the investment. A lot of clients and us are looking at areas like environment, social governance issues, green procurement. These are the areas that was almost becoming a norm. And now with the new change in socioeconomic politics in USA and how things are going, those norms can change really fast, and either that investment needs to be on hold or it could go in a different direction. So the entire shift and in geopolitics, I think they could have some consequences on those kind of investment as a B2B business we are doing. But overall, that's not something which is in our control. So instead of worrying about that, if we could take control of what Wolfgang is suggesting, use your data, make sure you have a good understanding of the tools you're using and you are nimble to adapt as situations change. Along with that, probably having a good local supplier relationships and local governance about your clients. I think that would be very useful because, of course, things can get disrupted globally and supply chain is always a big issue in the B2B. So that nurturing local relationships, I think, is going to be very important.
Totally agree. Thank you very much. So, gentlemen, that's been a great conversation. We are out of time, but I think we've covered off some fantastic high-level and interesting subject matters there, and look forward into 2025. I'd like to thank everybody at Onemedia Consulting and everyone at Monsoon Consulting for making this happen. Thanks to everyone that joined the webinar. Please check out our respective companies' websites and socials. If there are any other questions, please feel free to follow up. We'd be delighted to take this one offline, as it were, and we'll hopefully run some more sessions like this. I've really enjoyed it. So thank you very much, everybody. So with that, I'll pass over and end the webinar. So thanks again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.